I waited 40 years, 40 long, patient years, believing the day would come when I could finally live. But life has a cruel sense of timing. I had a plan. I followed the rules. I waited, and I told myself every single day that tomorrow I would finally be free. You might think that waiting makes you wise, that patience is a shield. But what if the years you give are stolen from you instead? Imagine a life paused, every dream deferred, every desire deferred, until one morning you wake up and realize the world has moved on without you. And worse, you have. I can still feel it, the weight of those decades pressing down, the missed chances, the quiet heartbreaks, the empty chairs at the table I never sat at. And now it is too late. I can't live the life I waited for, not because the world won't let me, but because my time has slipped through my fingers like sand. I know what you're thinking. Surely someone who waited can still catch up. Surely decades of preparation, of discipline, of hope can't end like this. But they do, and when they do, there is a silence unlike any other. I want to tell you how it happened, how 40 years of waiting turned into nothing. But first, you need to understand the illusion I lived in, the life I thought was safe, the life that tricked me into thinking I had time. Because that illusion, it was the first lie, and the first lie always comes before the cracks. For decades I believed I was safe. I built my life around routines, rules, and plans that promised certainty. Wake up, work, follow the path. Repeat, every step calculated, every risk measured. The world outside my little bubble seemed chaotic, but inside I was untouchable. I told myself, if I wait, if I prepare, if I follow the rules, I will live when the time comes. There was comfort in that thought, a quiet power in knowing that tomorrow finally I could step out of the shadows and claim the life I imagined. It felt like standing behind a wall, strong, unyielding, safe, and like all walls, it gave me a false sense of security. History is full of walls like mine, guilties that believed walls could hold back empires, societies that believed laws and traditions would preserve order, people who believed waiting, patience, and compliance would protect them from fate. But every wall has cracks, every illusion has a flaw. For me, it started with small signs, a missed opportunity here, a subtle warning there. I ignored them, I rationalized them, because why worry? Tomorrow would always come. I was confident, overconfident. Perhaps there was an arrogance in thinking that time itself was mine to command, that my careful waiting had earned me immunity from life's unpredictability. And in that confidence, in that false sense of control, I missed the first warning. The world outside my little bubble was shifting, not in dramatic, obvious ways, but quietly, imperceptibly. Small cracks, small disturbances, enough to unsettle if you were paying attention. I wasn't stuck, because I was safe, or at least I thought I was, and that belief, that dangerous comfort, was the beginning of the end. The first cracks were subtle, almost invisible, but every crack eventually grows, and when the cracks become too many, you realize that safety was never real. The question is, when did I first notice the cracks? And more importantly, when did I choose to ignore them? The answer is coming. The cracks began quietly, almost whispering, almost invisible. It started with small disappointments, things I could brush off, things I could convince myself were temporary, a friend who didn't show up, a chance that slipped away, a plan that didn't unfold as expected. I told myself, It's fine. Not yet. There's still time. But time has a way of laughing at you. The first cracks were subtle, but they changed everything. They altered the rhythm of life in ways I didn't notice at first. A slight hesitation here, a shadow of doubt there, a chill I couldn't explain. I began to feel unease, like standing on ice you think is thick but isn't. The kind of unease that makes you glance over your shoulder even when nothing is there. And yet, I ignored it, because I had built a life of certainty. I believed in my routines. I believed that my patience, my preparation, my waiting would keep me safe. People around me started noticing too, not the cracks themselves, just the consequences. A friend whispered concern. A colleague raised a question. A stranger remarked on how quickly things were changing. I smiled. I reassured. I explained away the anomalies. It's nothing, I said, just temporary. Nothing I can't handle. But deep down, there was a flicker, a small, unsettling truth. The world was moving faster than I could follow. The cracks were widening, and my confidence, my carefully constructed shield, was beginning to feel hollow. I started to notice patterns in the chaos, how minor failures began to compound, how missed opportunities, small and silent, were accumulating into something bigger, something I couldn't control. And still, I chose to wait, because waiting had been my entire life, 40 years of it, and it had never failed me, until now. The cracks grew more insistent. Shadows stretched where there had been light. The warmth of certainty began to fade. And then, one day, the first undeniable warning arrived, a signal I could no longer ignore. But by then, I wasn't ready to face what it meant. The cracks weren't just in my world. They were in me. And the moment I realized it, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The cracks were no longer quiet. They shouted. Suddenly the consequences of waiting, of believing in my own invincibility, became visible. Plans that had once seemed so secure were unraveling before my eyes. Opportunities I had assumed would last forever vanished. And yet, I told myself, it wasn't set real. Denial is a powerful thing. It creeps in slowly, disguising itself as hope. It whispers, just a little longer. You still have time. Don't panic. I clung to that whisper, because panic would mean admitting the truth, and the truth was unbearable. Friends, family, even strangers began pointing out the changes, some gently, some with frustration, but I brushed them off. I laughed. I reassured. I repeated the mantra I had lived by for 40 years. Tomorrow, I will live. But the world doesn't wait. It doesn't pause for the patient. It doesn't bend for the prepared. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the cracks became fractures. A decision I had postponed for decades suddenly demanded attention. A chance I had ignored could no longer be seized. A voice my own screamed warnings I refused to hear. And yet society, authority, even common sense, all conspired to let me remain in denial. It's okay, they seemed to say. Nothing is urgent. You can always catch up. But the illusion had already slipped away. I watched people around me live, move, make mistakes, recover, and I realized something terrifying. I had waited too long to live. My opportunity was no longer a matter of choice. It was a matter of survival, and survival in my case came too late. And still, I tried. I tried to push against the inevitable. I tried to regain control. But the cracks, they had grown into chasms. Every step forward revealed another fracture, another warning I had ignored. The life I had waited for was slipping beyond reach. By the time I understood the magnitude of it, it was no longer just personal failure. It was unavoidable consequence. I could see it in the faces of others, the pity, the confusion, the quiet despair. I could feel it in the empty spaces I had left behind. And in that moment I realized the world had given me every chance, and I had squandered them all. The escalation was complete. Denial could no longer shield me, and with that came the heavy, unavoidable realization that some things cannot be fixed. There is a moment in every life, a moment when the path you walk suddenly splits. One way leads to recovery, to redemption, the other to loss, irreversible and silent. I reached that moment. 40 years of waiting had brought me here, and for a fleeting instant I could have turned, could have acted, could have lived. But I didn't set. It was not a grand, cinematic event. No fire, no explosion, no single catastrophe. It was smaller, quieter, deceptively ordinary. A door opened, a chance appeared, and I hesitated. Just a pause, a single careless hesitation. I convinced myself it wasn't the right time, that tomorrow would be better. That 40 years of waiting still counted for something. The cruel truth is, tomorrow never comes in the way you imagine. I watched as the opportunity faded, slowly, subtly, but permanently. There was no dramatic collapse, no final warning, just a quiet, persistent vanishing. And with it, the life I had been waiting for. I could feel it. The weight of every deferred choice, every moment I had postponed, every decision I had delayed. They piled on me, heavier than any punishment I could have imagined. And the realization hit harder than any physical blow. The moment I could have saved myself had passed. I had waited 40 years for freedom, for adventure, for life itself. And yet, when the chance finally arrived, I was too late. I could see the consequences stretch out before me, not as a single disaster, but as a quiet, crushing inevitability. My time had run out. My chance was gone. Some would call it fate. Others would call it misfortune. I call it regret, the kind that doesn't fade with sleep, the kind that lives in the bones, in the silence, in the spaces where your dreams should have been. And in that silence, I finally understood the cost of waiting. It is more than lost time. It is everything. The world didn't end with a bang. It didn't announce itself with a warning siren. It collapsed quietly, like sand slipping through fingers too slow to notice. I felt it first in the small things. Doors that didn't open when I pushed, plans that dissolved mid-step, familiar routines once comforting, now meaningless. Every attempt to grasp what I had lost failed. Every effort to reclaim the life I had waited for met with resistance, with futility. Confusion settled over me like a fog. Faces blurred, voices repeated, echoed, then disappeared. I moved through days that felt like nights, nights that stretched endlessly. The hours became a river of monotony, carrying nothing but my own regret. I saw people around me adjust, adapt, survive, and I realized I could not anymore. The collapse was not violent. It was subtle, relentless, and inevitable. Each day, another quiet reminder. The life I imagined was gone. The plans I counted on, meaningless. The dreams I protected, ashes. There were moments I tried to fight, moments I thought I might still reclaim something, but every resistance only highlighted the truth. The consequences of waiting are final. I was left with fragments, shadows of conversations, echoes of laughter, whispers of what could have been, empty chairs, silent phones, locked doors, closed windows, and with each passing day the emptiness grew. Not loud, not spectacular, but heavy, crushing, absolute. In that emptiness, there is no anger, no shock, only awareness. The awareness that life, the life I waited for, is gone. And the worst part is knowing that no one else can give it back. The collapse does not wait for understanding. It comes for everyone who hesitates, for everyone who assumes there will always be a tomorrow. And I waited too long. The silence after the collapse is worse than the collapse itself. And in that silence, you hear everything you ignored. After the collapse, there is nothing, not chaos, not noise, just quiet. I sit in that quiet and feel the full weight of 40 years gone. Every moment I waited, every choice I postponed, every dream I stacked like coins, all vanished. It is strange how emptiness feels heavier than pain. Pain ends, emptiness lingers. It settles in your bones, in your chest, in the silence between each breath. I look back now, trying to pinpoint the exact moment it all slipped through my fingers. I trace it to the hesitation, to the rationalizations, to the countless tomorrows that never came. The world around me moves, oblivious. People still live, still plan, still take chances, and I watch from the sidelines, a ghost of what I could have been. Regret is not loud. It does not scream. It whispers, softly, relentlessly, in the small moments, in empty rooms, in forgotten mirrors, in the spaces where life should have been. And yet, in that whisper, there is clarity, a cold, harsh clarity. I waited for life to begin. I waited for the perfect moment, and in waiting, I lost it entirely. There is no redemption here, no last-minute escape, no magic to undo 40 years of hesitation. All that remains is awareness, awareness of what could have been, awareness of what was lost, awareness of the unbearable truth time, once gone, does not return. And I see it now, so clearly. Every choice I deferred, every opportunity I ignored, every moment I thought I had, slipped away while I waited. 40 years, gone. The aftermath is not dramatic. It is not filled with fire or noise. It is filled with silence, heavy, endless, and unyielding. And in that silence, you finally hear the truth. You were too afraid to face. While waiting, life waits for no one. If you wait too long, the life you imagined may never be yours. Look at your life. Really look. How many moments have you deferred? How many chances have you told yourself could wait until tomorrow, until the right time, until you were ready? I was patient. I was careful. I followed the rules. I waited for decades. And yet, all that waiting brought me nothing but silence, nothing but emptiness. There is a dangerous illusion we all fall for that time is infinite, that there will always be another day, another chance, another opportunity to live. It is a lie. Time does not wait. It does not forgive, and it does not care if you are ready. You might think, I have years left. I can afford to wait. But ask yourself, how many tomorrows have already slipped through your hands? How many dreams have you stacked on the shelf, never to be claimed? I waited 40 years to live. And now, do not wait. Do not defer. Do not assume there will be a perfect moment, a safe moment, a tomorrow that guarantees anything at all. Live now. Even if it is messy, even if it is uncertain, even if it is terrifying, because waiting may cost you everything, and when it is too late you will understand. 40 years of waiting taught me one truth above all. The life you postpone may never be yours. And when you realize it, the silence is eternal.